Good evening, everyone. My name is Zach Norris. I am excited to teach your children this school year. It is an honor to have the opportunity to make a positive impact on the lives of students each year. My goal is for your kids to learn as much as they can while having a fun experience in my classroom this year. Thank you all for coming tonight and for being invested in the lives of your children. My hope is that after tonight you will have an understanding of what an inclusive education is and how I plan to incorporate it into my classroom this year. As you can see by the picture, the word inclusive is related to the word included. In short, I want each student to feel like a valued member of the team this year. I want everyone to be happy to be a part of learning with each other. The first step of establishing an environment of peer inclusion is building positive relationships. My goal for the first few weeks of school is to get to know your children and lead them to get to know each other. I want to create a friendly environment where everyone gets to see the best in each other. We will learn to respect each other's differences and see the value that each other has. It is everyone's job to have a positive perspective about each other in every situation. Instead of looking for pointing out flaws, I want my students to encourage one another with noticing each other's strengths. I also want to get to know your child's academic abilities. My goal is to educate all students to the best of my ability. Since everyone is different, what that looks like will differ from student to student. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act ensures that all students have access to a free and appropriate public education. Every student has an equal opportunity to this education, but it does not mean that everyone is being taught in the same way. It ensures that each individual has the support that they need to learn how they learn best. So it differs from student to student. Everyone has the right to the least restrictive environment, meaning that anyone has a chance to learn in the general education classroom. The appropriate supports are brought into the classroom instead of taking the student out of the classroom to provide those supports. I want everyone to be together as much as possible because everyone has something valuable to offer each other in the classroom. By getting to know your children, I can then personalize learning and differentiate instruction to ensure that each student is challenged appropriately in order to make growth. For example, let's say that each student in my class has a different level of understanding adding fractions. The tree on this slide can represent each student's understanding. The higher up in the tree, the more the student understands adding fractions. I can then use this knowledge to provide students with the appropriate assignment that fosters their growth. A learning task should not be too challenging, nor should it be too easy. Students can move up one or two tree branches at a time. The important thing is that everyone is making some growth. In the event that a student does not make growth, and I have tried various ways to help the student make growth, then the student would be provided with an intervention. Response to intervention is designed to help any student at any time who needs more assistance with anything academically or behaviorally. It could be to help a struggling student or to challenge an excelling student. A pure inclusive education means that each student has access to the education that helps them learn best. There are many benefits to an inclusive education for all students. Peer inclusion helps students gain positive attributes both behaviorally and academically. Students have the opportunity to learn to respect each other's differences. For example, if a student with ADHD did not have the opportunity to learn in the general education classroom, then the student would not learn how to interact with classmates, nor would the classmates learn how to interact with the student with ADHD. Students would not learn about each other. The other students in the class would not be able to experience how ADHD is not a disorder, but a difference. They would not experience and encourage the strengths that the student with ADHD has. No matter who you are, you have unique abilities, and inclusion allows each person to find them together and express them to each other. An inclusive education also allows students to learn how to respond to conflict in a healthy way. For example, the picture below represents a community circle, where everyone has a sense of belonging. As issues arise this year, then I will gather everyone together in a community circle in order to talk about how to appropriately understand and respond to the problem. An inclusive education also benefits students academically. All students have the opportunity to collaborate and participate in learning. As they do this, they learn about each other's strengths. On any given day, any student could notice and teach another student about something related to their learning. Everyone has something to offer each other as they learn. My hope is that everyone feels comfortable doing this throughout the year. As students work together, they find their learning styles and strengths. As they find their learning styles and strengths, it builds their excitement to be innovators and explorers. Learning knows no bounds. I plan to provide different choices for your students this year that includes activities that are designed to accommodate all of their learning styles and all of their interests. Nobody is perfect, and no model of education is perfect. Therefore, my goals for my inclusive classroom this year will not be perfect. I want to do everything I can to make it the best it can be, though. I would like to share a couple of remedies to a couple of common imperfections or challenges in having a peer inclusive classroom. First of all, many teachers do not get to know the cultural differences of the students that they teach. I plan to get to know your cultural differences. It is very important to understand cultural differences when promoting an inclusive classroom. I understand that everyone differs in parenting styles and that values within homes differ from person to person. Therefore, it is important for me to learn about you and your family in order to understand your cultural differences. This is also why it is important for students to build positive relationships with each other in order to learn how to respect each other's cultural differences. I plan to co-construct classroom expectations with students. I will review my expectations with students and explain why they are important to everyone's success. But I also want them to know they can contribute too. Everyone has different recipes for success. My hope is to use these different recipes in order to make a new recipe. Take a look at my comparison of canned food goods to cultural differences on this page. Everyone has the same human rights, just like every can is made up of the same metal. Everyone has cultural differences though, just like every can has a different food label. Imagine cooking a recipe without knowing what was inside each can. By knowing what is inside each can, you can make a tasty meal by following the recipe. Likewise, my hope is to use cultural differences as a great learning experience for each student this year. Everyone should be proud of their differences and be able to contribute to the class with them. They should know that their differences make them uniquely awesome. Another remedy to the imperfections of inclusion is high expectations for all. Some teachers view inclusion as mainstreaming. Mainstreaming is where a student is placed in the general education classroom where everyone is expected to keep up and learn in the same way. In my class, the appropriate supports will be available to ensure that each child is given the opportunity to learn how they learn best individually. Every student is expected to learn as much as possible. Like I said earlier, I will differentiate instruction to make sure each student is challenged with the appropriate level of rigor. Students will understand my high expectations when I provide them with rubrics and clear directions. I will also provide your children with choices in order to encourage them to take ownership of their own learning. Throughout the year, I plan to engage your children in problem solving. As I said earlier, I will hold community circles where students can resolve issues with my guidance. It is important that each student learns to work through conflict and learns to respect each other. I will encourage each student to view each situation with a positive perspective, have perseverance and patience, and learn to forgive and reconcile. One of the posters in my room always reminds me of these positive character traits and my inclusive classroom ideas. Take a look at the Lion King poster on this slide. Lion King is my favorite Disney movie of all time. I want each student in my class to learn from their past, but more importantly, live in the present in order to prepare for the future as they work together. My hope is that every student learns everything in my class that they can in order to prepare them for a great future ahead of them. I want my inclusive classroom to teach them to be able to work productively, peacefully, and happily with anyone they interact with in their future. Thank you again for coming, everyone. I will take any questions in a moment here. I believe that our communication is vital to your child's success this year. I would like to praise their successes with you. Always feel free to reach out if you want to plan for more of a challenge for your child. If we ever need to solve any conflicts throughout the year, then we can have an in-person meeting or speak over the phone, whichever works best for you. Thank you again for being here to learn more about your child's education. Are there any questions?